Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us for this London Borough of Richmond upon Thames event on the Green Homes Grant. Thank you very much for joining. What we're going to do this evening is I'm going to run through a very quick presentation, just kind of outlining what the Green Homes Grant is about, and also how you can access it, the sorts of measures that you can have installed. We also have Russell Smith from Retrofit Works, who's here to talk a bit about the sorts of measures that could be installed in your homes if you're eligible and take up the Green Homes Grant. And then we'll open it up for any questions from people that you might have around the Green Homes Grant. So just some housekeeping. If you could keep yourselves on mute throughout, unless you're asking a question, that really helps with background noise and things like that. If you keep your cameras off as well, just through the presentations, that can help just sort of with bandwidth and stuff like that. Also just let you know that this session is going to be recorded, so we can put it up on the website so that people who couldn't join this can then look at the session later on at their own leisure. So just be aware that if you are asking a question, then your image and your voice will be recorded. If you don't want your image or voice recorded, then please stay on mute, keep your camera off, and you can ask questions using the chat function as well if you want. So I will now start the presentation. Yes, thank you very much for joining. My name's Andrew Hagger. I didn't introduce myself at the start, I realised. I'm Policy Review Manager here at Richmond Council, and I lead on lots of our climate change work, and the Green Homes Grant comes within my team. So just a little bit about what is the Green Homes Grant. So the Green Homes Grant is funding provided by central government to support the retrofit of homes across the borough. And we've secured funding to deliver energy efficiency and low carbon heating for 108 homes across the borough. This is different from the Green Homes Grant voucher scheme that's being run by the government, which you may have heard about in the last month or so in the press about there's problems with the Green Homes Grant voucher, stuff like that. This scheme is different from that, and I can't stress that enough. We already have the funding secured for this. We have a partner, Retrofit Works, who's delivering this. So the issues that are affecting that scheme is not affecting this scheme. And that's the important thing that I wanted to make sure that you're all aware of. So why should you be interested? Well, you can have £10,000 worth of improvements for your home if you meet the criteria. You don't have to pay anything. So it's £10,000 worth of improvements to your home. And these improvements can make your home warmer and reduce your energy bills. And using less energy can help reduce your carbon emissions as well as reducing your bills. So who is eligible? So it's important to note that Richmond's Green Homes Grant Scheme is not open to all. It is targeted at those who most need affordable warmth. So the scheme is targeted at those who may be struggling to pay their energy bills due to having low incomes and having less energy efficient homes. So the key things are the property must have an EPC rating of D, E, F or G, and those are the lowest energy efficiency ratings for homes. So in the current scheme we're running, only those with an E, F or G rating are eligible, but we've secured funding for a further round of works, and that will start sort of March, April sort of time, and that's when those properties that have a D rating will then be eligible. This is really, really good news because there's lots more properties that are rated D in the borough than there are sort of E, F or G. It's one of the more common EPC ratings, so it opens us up to doing a lot more work around the borough. The household income also must be under £30,000 a year. You must be either an own occupier or rent from a private landlord, and you need to be willing to have the work done to your property, and that also is really, really important. We want to be engaging and involving people who really do want these works done. So it'd be helpful if to have a think about that before you apply, if you really are willing to get the works done. So what can you have installed? I think this is a key question that everyone will want to find out more about. So what can you have installed? So you can have insulation, external wall insulation, internal wall insulation, cavity roof insulation, underfloor, or a combination of all of them. Obviously, insulation will keep the heat in and mean that you pay less money for your energy to heat your home. You can also have air source heat pumps. So this is a newer technology. It's not new technology, but it's newer technology for heating your home. Uses electricity to transfer heat from one place to another and heat water. It's kind of like a fridge in reverse is a decent analogy for that. You can have double glazing installed. You can have solar PV, which is solar photovoltaic. So that's the solar panels that you see on people's roofs, and this produces electricity for your home. You can also have heating controls. This is so you can better control the temperature of your home and also then use less energy. For example, you can set different rooms maybe to be different temperatures, and then you can use less energy in terms of heating your home to the temperature you need it to be. And there's also solar thermal. This provides hot water that's heated by the sun. The other thing that I did need to say as well is, and this is an important point, is you cannot have your gas boiler replaced by a new gas boiler using this scheme. The aim of the Green Homes Grant is to lower carbon emissions, and so it's not funding replacing a fossil fueled heating source with another fossil fueled heating source. So how can you apply for funding? We've already sent letters out to people we think may be eligible. We've sent out nearly 1,000 letters so far across the borough. So we've already been in contact with lots of people, and some of those may be already on this call and have some questions about the scheme. If you've not been sent a letter, that doesn't mean you're not eligible. We use some data to try to think about how we can best target letters. We don't want to send out letters to everybody in the borough, because that would be sort of a waste of time, because lots of people won't be eligible. But if you think you might be eligible, please do email greenhomesgrant@richmond.gov.uk, or you can go to the Richmond website. If you look into search for Green Homes Grant, you'll get the Green Homes Grant page up, and there's loads of information on there. So if you think you're eligible, then please do get in touch. We have a member of staff who's dedicated working on the Green Homes Grant and is available to answer your questions that you may have. So what information do you need in order to apply? Well, we need to check that you meet the criteria that's been set up by central government, and that's a condition of our funding. So we do need to make sure that that happens. Otherwise, there's a chance our funding might get taken away. So first of all, we need to check your property is EPC D, E, F, or G, and we can look this up for you. There's public records around what EPC rating properties have. If your home does not have an EPC rating, we can do use some modelling software that Retrofit Works have kindly allowed us access to check whether you may be there. It uses some of the sort of data around surrounding houses and what EPCs they are to see where they are, so we can have a look and see whether you would be eligible that way. If you're already in receipt of some benefits and we have a record of that, then we can quickly check that to verify your income level. And if we don't have a record, we will need you to provide some evidence of income. So this could be wage slips or 3 months worth of bank statements. And all this is explained in a lot more detail on the application form, exactly what you need to send in. And why should you do this and not the government voucher scheme? So this scheme is a better scheme, we feel. If you're eligible, then you will receive a free home assessment to identify what works are suitable. Our delivery partner, Retrofit Works, will carry out that assessment and discuss your options. They'll also arrange the delivery of the works with trustmark contractors and check the work. This makes it much easier for you to get the improvements you want done to your home. Also, I want to stress that given the situation we're in with COVID, we are following COVID protocols. Retrofit Works are carrying out COVID risk assessments before they do anything around sort of approaching coming into your home to do the assessments. And they're also working with the contractors around COVID secure guidelines and things like that. So that's all in hand, and we're very much conscious of that. And we realise that at the moment, people may not be comfortable with having people inside their homes doing assessments and things like that. And so what we'd say is, please do get in contact with us. Please do apply and see if you're eligible, get it all set up so that when you do feel more comfortable about having somebody in your home to carry out this work, then it can be done nice and quickly. And basically, this scheme is easier than the government's Green Homes Grant voucher, we think. So what about renting your home? Is this a problem? Well, no, it's not. The scheme is open to those who privately rent their home. So landlords aren't eligible for the full £10,000 worth of funding, but they can access up to £5,000 for improvements, but they will then need to make a contribution themselves. So they need to pay at least a third of the cost of improvement. And also the advantage of this is that you'll be able to take advantage of the easier route to access improvements via retrofit works. So if you do privately rent your home, please pass this information on to your landlord. We still need to check the household income and the EPC renting, and the landlord will need to contribute. If you're a social renter, then unfortunately you're not eligible for this scheme. We know that social landlords at the moment are looking at what they want to do around improving energy efficiency of their homes and reducing carbon emissions from them. There's a funding pot that's coming out from central government called the Public Sector Decarbonisation, called the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund. And so hopefully, if you are a social renter, they'll be bidding for that and then have money to do works to the properties that they own and manage. So in terms of next steps, if we contact you, please do respond. Please do let us know if you're interested. Also, if we contact you and you're not interested, please tell us why. That would be helpful as well. If you think you're eligible, but we haven't contacted you, please do get in touch with us. And if you can't take part in the scheme, please tell people who you think might be able to take part. Tell others, and if they are eligible, that's great because they can have this work done to their home and get lower fuel bills and also lower their carbon emissions. Also, there's lots of other things you could do to green your home. There's lots of information that we put up on our website, on the council website, richmond.gov.uk. So please go along there. If you're not eligible for the scheme and you don't really know anyone who would be, but you're interested in energy efficiency, we do have resources up there to try and find something. So yes, please do contact us, greenhomesgrant@richmond.gov.uk, or go onto the council website and you can have a look there. So that's it from me. I'm now going to hand over to Russell, who's going to talk very briefly about the sorts of things that you can have installed in your home. Russell.
Hi everyone, hope you're well. Congratulations on being a much bigger and more interesting crowd than the last one we did. You've got some really good questions on the chat, so I'll enjoy tucking into those when I've finished. What I'll do is I'll just explain the process that we go through. Some of the questions in the chat are about that, and then I'll end up with a discussion as intimated, talking about what measures are likely to end up with. So, as Andrew said, I work for Retrofit Works, which is a not-for-profit cooperative that's based in Wandsworth. We very deliberately set ourselves up to try and act as an intermediary between organisations like Richmond Council and the supply chain, the people that are in the area that can do this work, but they tend to be, we tend to need a mechanism to allow householders to explain what they want, what contractors are able to do, and a sort of, if you like, an impartial assessment to make all that work. So that's effectively what we'll do at step one. Once the Richmond Council staff have made sure that you are eligible for the programme, we get past your details, and the first contact you'd have is from one of the members of the team in Wandsworth, who just take you through sort of an introduction to what this will be about. The next contact will be from a retrofit coordinator. The retrofit coordinator is somebody that is well versed in how buildings are renovated, but also critically importantly, they're very well versed in what makes a big difference to people's energy bills and their carbon emissions. And obviously comfort. That's what this is all about as well. So the good news is that even if you have one piece of loft insulation and put in your property, it will reduce your bills, it will reduce your carbon footprint, and it will make the house warm up more quickly and cool down more slowly. So that's one of the main thrusts for having this particular program. So that retrofit coordinator will need to visit the property. We have to look at the property top to bottom just to make sure that we're assessing your energy consumption as it is right now. And we use a piece of software that enables us to model all the things you could possibly do with the building. We'll create a very long list of things that are possible. So you're going to get a really great report on the back of this that says, we'll show you how you can get to very near to net zero carbon emission for your property. Now, to manage your expectations, this program won't pay for all of that, but you're going to get a really good piece of information that tells you how you could get there. The program will pay for some of the stuff that's a priority for you at the top of the list. And your retrofit coordinator will discuss your priorities with you, but we've got some parameters within which we must exist to pay the money, spend the money wisely within the guidance that the government has set us. So Andrew put a list together of measures. The focus will be insulation and making sure you're reducing the need for energy in the first place. I know some people on the call might have a dodgy boiler, an old boiler, a broken boiler. Unfortunately, we can't fix that problem unless you're prepared to have an air source heat pump in exchange for a gas boiler. That's very much what this government is pushing in this programme. And as somebody that's been banging on about this as an environmentalist for nearly 20 years now, an air source heat pump is the way for most houses to go. And even if you've got a new boiler, it's a good solution. But the software will work out whether it's appropriate for your house. So one thing to bear in mind, every house is unique. So the assessor will discuss with you your priorities, we'll look at the house, and in the middle of that discussion, we'll work out how best to apply the money that this scheme is providing to each householder. On that basis, then, once you're happy with the package, we will go and make sure that we've got quotes from our contractors that are based in and around the area. We will make sure that they're put into contract. We've got a commitment on both parts in order to do that. And on that basis, we'll move forward with an installation. So the good news about this, just to reiterate how this is different from the Green Homes Grant voucher scheme you might have seen about in the newspapers, Richmond Council already have the money. We don't have to go chasing for vouchers and waiting for an administrator in the background to eventually get round to this. This is literally myself and the team at Richmond Council will have a chat about what to do. We'll say yes or no. We'll go ahead with the package. We'll appoint a contractor. We'll get the work done. And we'll pay the contractor quickly, provided they've done a good job, of course. And that's the other role of the Retrofit Coordinator. The Retrofit Coordinator will be the person that will also check the quality of the work to make sure that this is a good thing. This is the strength of the Retrofit Coordinator's role. Quite often, householders don't necessarily know whether what's been done is good or not, but the Retrofit Coordinator does. So that's a great legacy for this particular program. You get a nice report telling you how to get to zero carbon and get your bills down as far as possible, but you'll get somebody that's going to look after the contractor to make sure they do a good job. See some of the questions coming in. Does the grant cover solar panels? It can do if it's a priority for your property, and it may not be. So if you're applying for the scheme thinking I fancy some solar panels, we might disagree with you. So it's about your property, your priorities, and whether it's appropriate. We'll have that discussion with you. I think on that basis, Andrew, I think I've probably gone through all the key bits, and I think it might just be most valuable to go through some of the questions in the chat, given there's some good questions there.
Yes, I think so. I think if we go through some of the questions in the chat and then maybe open it up to if there's any further ones. So it's really good that there's loads in there. So Dean Allen has asked, could the grant cover external cladding for my end of terrace house?
Yeah, so I replied to that in the chat earlier on, but I think it's worth emphasising that in theory, yes, it's all about what the overall budget of that particular piece of work would be. I mean, I've installed some external wall insulation in the borough of Richmond before, and you've got to bear in mind that if it's a end of terrace property, if there's a footpath immediately next to your building, we might not be allowed to because it encroaches on other land that's not yours. We almost certainly would need to apply for planning permission. That might slow things down. But the clincher that I put in the chat there, it might be over our budget. Typically, you might expect external wall insulation to cost about £120 a square metre. If you've got front, side, back, and if you've got one of those outriggers in the back of your Victorian property, you know, there's a bit of fiddly work to do. It could end up being over £10,000 worth of work. But as I say, go back to my earlier point, every house is unique. We'd be able to make that judgment. But we'd also, Dean, we'd be looking what other things you've already done in the property or haven't done. So, for instance, underfloor insulation might have a very big impact for a lower cost, in which case we'd be wanting to discuss that. Or, you know, and so on. There's lots of things that could happen there.
Great. We've got a question from Kate Miller, and she says, I've checked the rating and we are not listed. I'm assuming that's the EPC rating. So how do I find this out, please?
Another good part of the model. We've already modelled every house in the borough. So we know what your rating would be. And moreover, so at this particular stage, for instance, earlier on in this, the marketing, one of the marketing processes that the council have gone through is based on the modelling we've done. However, the assessor will come to your property and will confirm this for sure. So I think it's worth saying, Kate, if your building is probably relatively old, so I would say older than 1930, I'm pretty sure it's going to be EF or G rated. But on that basis, it's still worth applying, and the colleagues at Richmond Council can log on to our database to see what we think your house is whilst the application is going through. So just be honest and say, I don't know. And we can work it out through the application process. Okay.
Yeah, fantastic. Got one from Farah asking, can I clarify D is eligible as we were informed in the letter? It starts from me. So when we sent the letters out recently, we hadn't been told by central government whether we were whether we'd secured the funding for that extra phase. And so at the time, it was only for E, F, and G. Now we've been told that we've got this funding. Then Ds will be eligible, not immediately. It's when we actually start that sort of second round of funding and we can start doing that work. And then you'll be a D will be eligible. So if you do have a D-rated property, I'd say apply now so that you're kind of you're verified, so that when that scheme does go live, then you can get the work done really, really quickly. And there's another question from Andrew Thurston. Asking, would pensioners be eligible if their pension is below £30,000? And the answer is yes. As long as there's not two pensioners living together where the combined income is over. But certainly if you're living on your own and your pension is below 30k, then you would be eligible. And then there's another question from Farah around the property rating and not being given an application form. So it might be that you weren't identified as potentially being eligible in the checks that we did and the sort of data analysis that we did. So don't worry if you haven't been sent an application form already, then you can always ask and then we'll check your eligibility and can send you an application form. So just going through the questions some more, there's loads in here, it's really, really good. So from Art Gelling, so if solar PV/thermal is on a flat roof, planning may be required due to increase in height of a frame. Is this a problem?
I've got a strong feeling, as long as you lay it flat, which is not going to affect the efficiency a whole appreciable amount, you won't need planning permission, unless you think that might end up putting it into some kind of shadow. So I think first instance, try to avoid planning permission. It's a cost and it adds a delay. On the other hand, if it does require planning permission, we can go through that process. It's something that we quite like to do to test the model. It's a bit of a cost, but we can do it. But again, we've got to look at it in the round. We've got a budget we've got to try and maintain for every property. If we can do the whole lot within the process and we can hit the timescales, yes. But I get a feeling this is probably going to be, because of the timescales, we'll go into the next phase. But it's all about the timing. Don't let it put you off. Do apply if you think you're eligible. I think we'll work out the detail.
Okay. Just on planning, mostly planning is not required for solar PV unless it's in a conservation area. Flat roof might be different, but just as a general guideline, if it's on your house, then it should be fine unless you're in a conservation area. If you're in a conservation area, then it might be that you don't need planning permission unless it's facing onto the street. So if it's kind of facing into your rear garden, you probably don't need planning permission. So that's just a bit of a guideline for people there. So another one from Art Gelling. So that's, are you able to choose which options you wish to do? Or are you bound to go with those which with the most carbon savings? Okay, great question.
You're not bound by any in particular, but I think this is about a discussion that we'll have. So, okay, I've already talked about the budget limitations we've got. We've talked about the fact that we'll give you a plan that shows you everything that's needed to get to net zero. And then we will just talk about what your priorities are and where those fit. So it's not necessarily about carbon savings. I think this scheme is designed for people that might struggle to heat their house. So we will definitely be looking to pick the thing that will give you the most comfort, reduces your bills the most, but fits within that journey of getting all the houses to zero carbon. And I don't want to get all geeky on you, but there are certain ways you can do a house up that blocks all the things you might do later, and it's pretty nonsensical. So if this was a program that just did certain things because it's best for the program, you might end up having to take it out to do the next thing later, if that makes sense. So we're not doing that. We're putting a lot of thought into this, and we'll make sure that discussion accounts for all the things that suit the scheme and yourself. So you're not just going to be handed something and say, take it or leave it.
Okay, so next question is from Patricia Santaniello. So she says she's a landlord with a flat property, NG rating E. My income for the next tax year will be below 30,000, and I have a water cylinder tank that needs upgrading for the property. Will I be eligible for help towards the cost of upgrading it? So on that first part, Patricia, it would need to be the household income, not your income. So it's all about who's actually living in that property that you're renting out to somebody. So if the occupants have an income below £30,000, then yes, you would potentially be eligible for the scheme. If the tenants have incomes over 30,000, then no, wouldn't be eligible at all. Russell, I don't know if you can help with the water cylinder question.
But, you know, if you're eligible, then again, the retrofit coordinator will discuss the water tank with you and see whether it's your main priority. There's a good chance that if the water tank's working perfectly well, but it just hasn't got much insulation on it, we can just specify insulation. For 25 quid, that will be the best, most effective spending money you'll have for a decade. I would say that'll pay for itself in a couple of months. But you know, it might be more substantial. So it's just a case of discussing it with the retrofit coordinator when they come around.
And also on that, I wanted to make sure that you're aware, if you're a landlord and you're applying for the scheme, then you will make a contribution of 33%. So it's the full £10,000 worth of funding is only for owner occupiers who are eligible for the scheme. Landlords will need to contribute 33%, and it's only £5,000 worth of funding is the maximum sort of level for that. But it's still a pretty good deal. So there's another question from Maria, who asked, does the average household insurance cover a ground source heat pump as it is such new technology? I don't know if you know anything about that, Russell. I certainly don't know.
Well, it ought to. I mean, it's not such new tech. I've seen heat pumps that were installed in the 70s that are still working now. Not the 1870s, mind, the 1970s. So it's not that new. Insurance companies are aware of it. Provided you use an installer that has got the right workmanship guarantees applied, you get the manufacturer's warranty. And if you can pay for an insurance-backed guarantee that might cover it for a few years beyond, there's absolutely no reason why household insurance shouldn't perfectly be happy to cover that. In fact, you could argue that it's lower risk than a gas boiler as well. So, you know, they should prefer it, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, and certainly long term, ground source and air source heat pumps are a good bet, definitely. There's a big push from the government at the moment around that, and there's recognition that we need tens, hundreds of thousands of these to be installed across the country over the next decade if we're going to reach the net zero targets that have been set. So there's another question here about how long does the process take from filling the application to when work starts. So in terms of filling the application and doing sort of the council's bit of it around where we're assessing eligibility and we're checking all that off, that doesn't take too long, you know, a couple of weeks, absolute maximum really there. We just need to check some things. And then Russell, I don't know if you want to talk about the process of the whole house assessment and then arranging a contractor and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, as soon as we get given the nod that it's come through to us, we hope to get out and do the survey within 5 working days. And on that basis, as soon as that report has been identified and the package of measures that we think is worth going for is agreed, how long it takes to get started, it depends. If it's loft insulation, we can start very quickly. If there's planning permission involved, solar panel companies to get involved, all that kind of thing, it might take a little longer. But the key thing is we've already got the contractors on board. Our quotation process is very quick. So as soon as we're able to do this, we will. And we're up against tight deadlines from the government as well to spend the money. So we want to do it quickly. If the background to the question is, I don't want it done quickly, then you can tell us that too.
Yep. There's another question around what happens if the recommended work exceeds £10,000? Does the property owner have the option to top up? So we do have a little bit of flexibility around the £10,000. The government has said that it's not like a hard cap. It's the average spend per property needs to be £10,000. So if there is work that goes a little bit over, then there is a small amount of flexibility there. And I'm not really sure about what would happen if there would need to be a top up. So I would probably need to have a look into that if that ever came up. But yeah,
I think my recollection, again, I'm not sure either. My recollection is that the scheme was designed to help people that really need it. So the assumption was that there wouldn't be any money to top up. So I don't think it is possible, but I think it's worth checking.
Then there's some questions around funding for the EPCD rated properties. So we've only just been told in the last week that we've got the funding. So it's still quite new. So we've only just been told. So we're just working up about how we need to set up the delivery of it and when that can actually start. I think basically it won't be until sometime in April that we can start delivery on EPCD rated properties, because we do need to get some things set up around our procurement and our systems and stuff like that. So we're working as fast as we can to get it up and ready, but yeah, it won't be for a little while yet. But if you do have if you do have a D-rated property, please do get your application forms in as soon as you can, so that we can get those assessed, and then when we do launch it, you can be first and get it all done very, very quickly. There's a question from Susie Webb asking about whether this includes people who live in social housing, and unfortunately no, it doesn't. I explained briefly in the presentation, but yeah, this is open for private rented households, and also for own occupiers. So it's only for those, and there is funding that's come out, the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund, and that is going to be announced by the government. Well, it's been announced by the government, and we're working through actually sort of what we need to do to get bids in for that, and how much money is going to be available for that. And lots of social housing providers are going to be looking at that to kickstart retrofit work on their properties and to improve energy efficiency and reduce tenants' bills. But it's not something that we can do at the moment, although Richmond Housing Partnership have come in with a bit of a test pilot sort of thing with us on this second round of funding that we've just secured, and they're going to be doing 3 properties in the borough using some of this funding for that. But it's just more of a testing out, see how it works, and things like that. So it's only for 3 properties, but yeah. And there was a question again from Dean, who's asking whether the £30,000 limits for income refers to net income after tax, and it is before tax. So just to make that clear, £30,000 limit is before tax. And Jenny has asked whether an unemployed tenant would get the full £10,000, and yes, they would, unless they were in receipt of benefits that went over £30,000. Then yes, they would. Savings are not taken into account, and that's another important thing to note. So I'm just looking through some more of these questions. There's even more coming in. There's this one from Liz. So she asked, your presentation spoke of air source heat pumps, but you've now mentioned ground source heat pumps. Are water-to-water heat pumps with a substantially higher COP similarly allowed? You will not need to drill boreholes if we have access to a substantial body of water. I have not considered this at all, to be honest, Russell. Would a water-to-water heat pump be eligible for this?
It's eligible, but I doubt we can afford it.
Are they very expensive to install? I've got no idea about water.
Well, let me go to the start of the sentence. The only reason we mentioned ground source heat pumps because someone asked us a question about it, and we'd never be able to afford it on this programme. It's about £18,000. You know, water to water. Oh, I'd love to have a go, but I think it probably cost us 10 grand for the boat. So, you know, Yeah, definitely up for it. I've installed a few. I just can't. I just can't see us being able to do it. And I have to say as well, we don't have anybody on our supply chain that's able to install it. If it came up as if the property was immediately on the river, you were eligible, and we could. I'm very happy. I'm curious, and I'm a geek. I'd love to look into it, but let's see what happens. We'll evaluate it just like all the others.
So Liz, get your application form in and see if we're eligible, and then Russell can explore whether that's a goer. Okay, that's all the questions that have come up so far. Thank you very much. That's been fantastic. Really, really good response from everyone. Does anyone else have any questions? Please just raise your hand and I can call on you, or maybe just come off mute and ask your question. Is there any other questions? We have answered quite a few, so we might have covered everything that
Nicola's putting her hand up, Andrew.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, please.
I wondered if I could get some help to put double glazing in my sort of original Sash windows, which are original from the, I don't know, Victorian times, because obviously they're very thin glass in there, and it's the cold it just pours in. I wondered whether it might be possible. I'm certainly below the £30,000 threshold. I wondered if one can get help to replace with double glazing.
It's certainly one of the things that the retrofit coordinator will come and have a look at for sure. There's a couple of contributory factors for Sash windows actually. It might be that we could improve the draft stripping around the Sash window. There's some great systems that we can consider to stop the drafts going through the sashes, but they still work really well.
But if I could contribute to it, would they provide some help with the double glazing side of it?
Yeah, I still think it's possible that we might be able to do it within the budget. If I'm honest with you, it depends on the situation. Are you in a conservation area at all?
I might well be. Not probably a conservation. Not sure.
Okay, well, as a rule of thumb, just to let you know, and this is bonkers, you won't be allowed to put double glazing into your sash window if you are in a conservation area.
Well, I can't be, because quite a few young neighbours who've moved in have put double glazing in. So. Well,
that doesn't mean that they shouldn't have applied for planning permission.
That is true. Oh, I didn't think about that. I'm not. I don't think I. Yes. Okay. I don't think I am.
Okay, so it'll be one of the things that gets evaluated alongside the others.
So I can make an application. I asked for an application, do I?
Absolutely, go for it.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for your help. Thank you.
Great. Also, you can check on the Richmond website to see whether you're in a conservation area.
Okay.
So if you go in there and if you just have a look at the planning section there, I think there's a search function where you can have a look at that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that question. That's really good. Is there anybody else? Oh, there's another question that's come up in the chat from Lindsay Roberts Warren. So are Victorian/Edwardian houses converted into 2 or 3 flats eligible if only one flat owner applies, or does it have to be the whole property?
It's based on an address. I don't think, if it's an HMO, Andrew, I'm not sure on the eligibility, but if it's an individual address, each an individual address is eligible based on the income of the resident.
Yes, absolutely. In terms of the works that can be done, it does depend on the sort of leasehold agreement that you have. So, for example, if there's if somebody else owns the freehold and you don't have a share of that, then you would need to get agreement from them around doing the works, especially if there's external works. So, for example, if you're putting external wall insulation on, you would need to check, but it would depend on your lease. So you need to double check what's allowed and what bits are yours that you can control and do with what you want. And then also yeah, and whether there's different arrangements there. So you would need to double check that to make sure that you're allowed to do those works. So there's another one with from Angela, who asked what might happen with insulation under an upper flat, cavity walls, question mark.
Great question. One answer is it can be tricky. Ideally, you'd want to do that with all of your neighbours at the same time. So don't be afraid to have a chat with them, and if they're eligible, get them all to apply. That feels like the sort of project that will make all of our lives quite easy, actually, if we can get everyone in your block to do it. If it's just you, clearly you've probably already worked it out. If we put cavity wall insulation in your flat upstairs, it will just fall down to downstairs. So, you know, we can't tie off your walls and do just one flat, unfortunately. And this is me talking remotely now. For instance, you might have been built in a way that allows that to happen, but it's got to be assessed. But so there will still be plenty of things that we can do for your property if you can't do that particular measure. So don't let that put you off from applying. There'll definitely be things we can do and spend the money in your property to make your life a bit more comfortable.
Great, thank you very much. The other thing I want to let you know about is that if you're interested in solar panels, we have launched Solar Together London, which is a group buying scheme. So we're taking part in that, where people from all around London can go in together, express their interest in purchasing solar panels, and then basically by doing it all together in one lot, then you can get a discount. So there's that option there. There's some information that's gone out to residents. We sent some letters being sent out, and there's also some information on the website. So we've had a few more questions that have come in. One is, when does the scheme run out? So this scheme currently that we're running right now ends at the end of March. So I would advise you to get your application forms in as soon as you possibly can. We're hoping that we might be able to get some sort of extension from government, but we haven't had anything confirmed as yet. And so basically, to be eligible under the first sort of scheme, then get them in as soon as you can. And then hopefully if you're kind of in the system, then we'll be able to get the work done. If not, we are running the second scheme, and that will extend through until September 2021, September of this year. But again, it's about the sort of funding. So we've got funding now to deliver stuff, and we've got a funding package for that second one, and it's split 50-50. So if you wait too long, then it might be that we've actually spent the money for that 1B funding already, and so you won't be eligible. So if you are keen, if you want to get it done, get your application form in now, because there's the money that's to be spent that we literally have in our council bank account that's waiting to go out and pay for this work. So please do get your application forms in as soon as you can. Just having a look at some other questions. So does this apply to houseboats? I'm not sure. I would think possibly, but I genuinely am not sure, and I will have to check. So it's Kate Miller. So I think if you signed up, then you'll have put your email address in. So we will, if you want to privately send me your email address on the chat, or we can just try and make contact with you, because we'll have a look into that and see. At the moment, I cannot answer off the top of my head whether houseboats are eligible or not.
Put it this way: if Andrew says you are, we're up for it.
Yeah, there we are. we'll check. I think that might be a fun one for you, Russ. So we got a question from Lindsay Roberts Warren, who's asking, if underfloor insulation is suggested to be installed, does this mean also replacing carpets and other floor coverings, or can those be put back once the work is done?
So we've got two answers to that. The first answer is we would put your floor. There are two ways to install. The first is to lift the floor, put the insulation in, and put back what was already there. The second answer is that we work with a local company called Qbot, based in Wandsworth, that they have little robots that are able to go underneath the floor and spray the insulation by going through. You'd have to take a small area of the floor out, usually under the stairs where there's a few loose floorboards. They drop the robot down, then it drives around and sprays the insulation. It doesn't suit every property, and our retrofit coordinator would assess the viability of both. If you have a basement, that's Shangri-La really. We can insulate from below and not cause any disturbance. But it's about understanding what's possible based on the individual property. So those are the two options. Both of them, well, the robot and from the basement is obviously very straightforward. It is a lot of disruption to get the insulation done by moving all the furniture away, take the carpet up, take the floorboards up. All the cost in the work is really in the logistics rather than the insulation itself, but it makes a massive difference. So please don't let it put you off. The contractors we use are very good at making it as smooth as possible.
Fantastic. Just having a look at any other questions. So there's one from Maria just saying, I've not received a letter. Can you post a link? Yes, we can post a link in the chat. And also we're going to be sending out an email to everyone at the end. So my colleague Bethany has just put in the email address that we've got, which is greenhomesgrant@richmond.gov.uk. So if you just send us an email and we'll send an application form back to you. That's probably the easiest way. But if you go onto the Richmond website, type in Green Homes Grant, you'll be able to access all the information that you need from that. We've got a fan of the Qbot system, Art Gelling, saying the Qbot system is brilliant and minimal disruption. So yeah. Right.
And there's one more here. Our application, does our application need to upload quotes? No, that's how the grants, the Green Home Grant voucher scheme works. It doesn't work in this way. We'll come and do the assessment, and we will sort the quotes and we will pay the contractor.
Yep. It's much. This is why it's much easier to do it. If you're eligible, do it through this scheme because it is so much simpler for you, much less work for you to do because we're doing a lot of that sort of stuff for you. Okay, is there anything else? Is any hands? I can't see any hands unless somebody else can spot another hand. Okay. Do we have any more questions? Please do let me know, or just come off mute and just ask a question if there's anything else you want to ask. We've still got another 5 minutes left. Okay, in that case, I think we can wrap up. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming along. I really do hope that this has been really good for you in terms of getting information across to understand the scheme. I hope you're enthused about it. I hope you're going to all send in application forms and send us emails tomorrow about this because this is a really big part of Richmond's climate emergency work. Richmond declared a climate emergency in July 2019, and we're very serious about taking action on climate change, and we're very pleased we've secured funding from the government to deliver this stuff, and that we're working with Russell to do this sort of work. It's a really important first step. There's so much more that needs to be done, but this is a really important first step in terms of taking action on the climate emergency. So we do hope that this has been informative, that you send us an application form, get in touch with us, that you join in with other sort of climate related events as well that we're going to be running throughout the year. So yes, thank you very much, and hope to hear from you at other events and that you get in contact with us. And thank you very much to Russell for coming on as well. Really appreciate you taking the time and for answering all those questions. That's really great.
Okay, it's good. Gets me out of putting the kids to bed. It's fine.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Cheers then.